And now a special playoff edition of Donny Boast Weekly Football Flash with your host, Donny Boast.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Yes, indeed, everybody, we have reached this level thus far. The remaining 8. We'll see who survives to get down to the final 4 in the championship round next week. We have some good matchups. There are some interesting things to consider. But most of all, the focus will really be on whether the Patriots make it through, which we think they will, and if it will be the inevitable matchup between them and the Pittsburgh Steelers next week. But we first begin with the first game of this Saturday. The Atlanta Falcons going into the Philadelphia Eagles, who are without Carson Wentz. This appears to be the tightest matchup on the board, with the Falcons favored by 2.5. It is our understanding that this is the first time a the lowest seed, has gone into the highest seed and been favored. Of course, this is all possible because there is, as we've said before, no Carson Wentz. And it really has diminished the Eagles' chances of doing anything spectacular for what was going to be a very promising postseason. The over-under is 40. And here's what I think is going to happen. For no other reason than the football gods will have something to say finally on behalf of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles will win, and I think the game will go under 40. I think the weather will play a factor, 10 to 20 mile an hour winds, and of course a 30-degree game time. The Atlanta Falcons play in Hotlanta. They play in a dome. When they travel, they usually play in hot weather or they play in a dome. We have not really seen Atlanta try to make a playoff run in the freezing cold like this. I think it will affect them. The next game of the day is the Tennessee Titans, the upstart Tennessee Titans versus the New England Patriots. Oh boy. The Patriots with all the hubbubaloo about Jimmy Garoppolo, Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, the great totem pole that is the owner, GM, head coach, quarterback. Rumors of it all crumbling down. Well, we have some thoughts on that if we have time we might share later. But right now what's important to focus on is the game itself. The over-under in this game is somewhere between 47.5 and 48. The line is somewhere around 13.5 for the Patriots, even though I've seen it as low as 13 as of this morning. There's no earthly reason why the Patriots shouldn't do their patented destruction of the other team when there is commotion abound. This is what New England does. They wait for these big news stories to break and then they absolutely pummel the opponent. The Titans simply don't have the talent to withstand the Patriots. I don't think this is a New York Jets scenario of a couple of years back where they could walk into the divisional round in New England and beat them. I just don't think that's going to be the case. Because the Tennessee Titans don't have enough on offense to really compete with anything that New England can throw at them. Could it be a tighter game than 13? Anything's possible. But the over-under at 48, what that speaks to me is Pats blowout, Pats blowout, Pats blowout. The Sharps, everybody else, everyone's predicting a 40-10 victory, and I don't see how that's not impossible. The Jacksonville Jaguars, led by Blake Bortles, Mr. Turnover, will go into the Pittsburgh Steelers tomorrow and try to win a football game for all the marbles. Will it happen? Absolutely not. Some people think it might because they went there before and gave Pittsburgh some rough and tumble trouble. I do think Pittsburgh is a lazy team. I do think they have some issues all across the board, big injuries and whatnot. But nonetheless, they should win this game. Whether they cover 7.5, that's another story. This game screams under, with both teams trying to pummel each other into submission with 41.5 as the total. I think that's about right. Some lines are at 41. I say take the under, and maybe if you're feeling lucky, take Jacksonville to cover the 7.5, even though Pittsburgh should win this football game. The weather will also play a factor in that game, and Blake Bortles, as we know, does not do well with wind. It will be 15 degrees at kickoff. Wind chills up to about 5 degrees. It's going to be cold, cold, cold. Again, Jacksonville, Florida, playing in the cold. Think about that for a second. But the game of the week, the big one, the Whopper. The hoop-de-doo for all the marbles, for all and everything in the NFC, on some level could quite possibly be the real NFC Championship game. The New Orleans Saints versus the Minnesota Vikings in that top-rate defense. Case Keenum, what can he do? What can Drew Brees do against the defense? It's going to be a great matchup, and this line opened at 3 for Minnesota and has moved all the way to 5.5 on some boards. That's a pretty big jump. The over-under seems about right, opening at 45, moving all the way down to somewhere around 46.5 or 47. It's a tough call. Vegas knows what they're doing. That's a real 50-50 on the over-under. I do think the Saints should cover 5.5 if that's where you're getting it. I think the Saints got a shot to win this game. Some lines even have a money line out there for 2-1 on them. I would take it. Because if there's one thing you can't count out, it's Drew Brees in the playoffs. Yes, he'll be on the road. Yes, they'll be in the dome. Yes, they'll be against this absolutely destructive force in the Minnesota Vikings defense. The new-bred purple people eaters. But will it be enough? The Vikings on offense do everything they can not to lose the game. But the Saints defense is good enough to possibly bottle them in. Turnovers will probably tell the tale, and the question is who's going to turn it over more or less. So again, I like the Saints to win. I also like the under in this one. Have a great viewing weekend, and we'll see you next time.